Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is September 5th, 2025. We've now hit 700 days. 700 days since October 7th, 2023. Just a little bit of a personal update. Um, Many of you know I'm training for an Ironman and that's been put on hold because I've been having some health issues. And I was in the emergency room for much of last night and this morning because of some cardiac issues. It was not a heart attack, but it was a cardiac incident. And so all I kept thinking of when I was in the hospital was the chaos of the emergency room and how that doesn't begin to compare to the chaos in Gaza and how I had a warm blanket and I had doctors that took care of me. And one of the first things I got was an IV that gave nutrients, the very nutrients that the people of Gaza don't currently have. So please keep all who are suffering, the hostages who remain there, the 2+ million people who are being literally starved by humankind, that we're allowing this to happen, that our governments are allowing this to happen. It's being perpetuated by the Israeli military and the Israeli government, and many people around the world oppose it. But we have failed, as of yet, to bring it to an end. Updates from Gaza in the last 24 hours is Israel is intensifying its attacks on Gaza City, pushing into one of the urban center's largest and most crowded neighborhoods. Israeli strikes killed more than 30 Palestinians yesterday. The UN and aid groups warn that Israel's operations have already been having a horrific humanitarian consequences for the families sheltering in the famine-struck city. Many Gazan Christians refuse to leave their homes and their churches despite impending Israeli attacks. The Holy Family Church was marked to be safe from Israeli expulsions, unlike the Greek Church of St. Porphyrius and the Anglican St. Philip's Church. However, hundreds of people remaining there are distrustful that the Israeli military will honor these places of worship, as they already have been countlessly attacked. There's an article about leaders of Gaza's Christian community saying in a joint statement that was released on the 26th of August that the forced displacement would amount to nothing less than a death sentence. Speaking of death, we have now surpassed 64,000 people killed in Gaza. And that number is a conservative number in terms of the number of deaths. Separately, an Israeli spokesperson from the military said yesterday that the military now controls 40% of Gaza City. You'll recall that the main offensive is not set to begin until the middle of September, and yet already 40% of the city is under Israeli military control. Israeli strikes killed 53 people, mostly women and children, overnight into and on Thursday. In terms of ceasefire negotiations earlier this week, Hamas late on Wednesday expressed readiness for concluding a comprehensive deal to end the Gaza war, and that one of the agreements was that all hostages would be released in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. This was after Trump called on the militant group to release all living hostages remaining in Gaza. Netanyahu dismissed the statement as spin and nothing new. I talked about that some yesterday, but it's still in the news. The Lebanese government, they have a timeline and are quickly running out of it in terms of what it might take to disarm Hezbollah before they risk losing U.S. and Gulf, the Arab states from the Gulf's financial support. The other option is that there could be a renewed military campaign by Israel. President Trump said that yesterday. The UAE, the United Arab Emirates, told the White House that an Israeli annexation of the occupied West Bank would harm the Abraham Accords. Now, I wonder what that means. It means undercut it, yes, but does it mean, harming it? Or does it mean that the Abraham Accords would be taken off the table? For those of you who don't know, the Abraham Accords are the normalization agreement between the UAE and Israel, where they recommitted to economic ties and other diplomatic relationships. Far-right Minister Smotrich yesterday unveiled a map showing a proposed Israeli annexation of most of the West Bank during a news conference. The West Bank has already de facto been annexed, and the deep concern is that if people use the word apartheid to describe what's happening in the OPT right now, but people say there will be no doubt if there's a formal annexation that apartheid would be the next step. There would not be equal rights for the 2.53 million Arab residents of the occupied West Bank. Gustavo Petro Uguero, who is the president of the Republic of Colombia, sent a letter to the global Samud flotilla. I was talking about that flotilla, the one that had to turn back and go to Barcelona. He sent a letter and he said, I send a heartfelt embrace of solidarity to those from different corners of the world who are preparing to set sail to Gaza in coming days. I've carefully read the letter that was addressed to him from the flotilla, and I want to tell you that every word resonates with the living history of our peoples. You're the living testimony of humanity that still rises in the faith of barbarism. Dignity does not surrender, even when they try to suffocate it within walls, blockades, and silence. I have said it before, and I repeat it today. If Palestine dies, all of humanity dies with it. Therefore, every action opposing extermination, every voice that defies indifference is an act of life. What you are undertaking is not just a maritime journey, it is an ethical cry, a demonstration that solidarity can traverse the seas when borders are closed. I know it is not easy. I see the decision to board the flotilla, that it's neither romantic nor adventurous. It's born of deep conviction. In Colombia, we understand the weight of pain and the price of war. We know what it means to mourn those who are taken, to walk in hunger, and to bury hope. And perhaps that is why we understand the silence in the face of genocide is another form of complicity. You have chosen the most difficult and perilous path, that of action in the face of brutal violence. And I say to you, you are not alone. From this shore, in the name of people who have suffered the blows of war, we send you strength, we send you words, and we send you life. May the wind carry your boats with the force of history. May the sea open its arms, and may the world hear your message. Gaza is not alone. Palestine is not alone. Humanity can no longer remain silent. And when you reach the waters near Gaza, you will feel that traveling beside you is the voice of millions who believe that peace is not a utopia, but an obligation. Please return safely in fraternal solidarity. I don't know much about President Urrego, but I think that is one of the most beautiful letters. I'll be sharing it more significantly, but much of what he articulates resonates. Meanwhile, in the United States, our political system and legal system is in quite a bit of chaos. The U.S. State Department announced yesterday it's imposing new sanctions on Al-Haq, the Al-Mizan Center for Human Rights, and the Palestinian Center for Human Rights, sanctions on human rights organizations that are working for justice in Palestine. Three non-governmental organizations that in 2023 asked the International Criminal Court to investigate Israel's actions in Gaza. The U.S. told all of these countries, if you guys do this, referring to the recognition of Palestine, it's all fake, it's not even real. If you do it, you're going to create problems. That was our very articulate Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. President Trump is expected to unilaterally reinterpret the 1987 Missile Technology Control Regime Treaty in order to sell advanced military drones abroad. This is according to U.S. officials and other sources. Under the plan, the U.S. will designate drones as aircraft rather than missile systems, the U.S. officials said, adding that the effort is the first in a planned major review of the U.S. foreign military sales program, which will, of course, have profound implications on the Middle East. Trump is expected to nominate Lieutenant General William Hartman to lead the National Security Agency and U.S. Cyber Command. Hartman's been the acting leader of both agencies since Trump fired Hall from the role in April. Trump is also set to sign an executive order changing the department's defense name. Listen to this. The Department of Defense, it's said that Trump will change it to the name, the Department of War. That's what it was called during the Civil War. I want to say that's what it was called during antiquity. A separate source suggested the White House is exploring ways to implement the name change without an act of Congress. Elias Rodriguez, he was accused of killing the two Israeli embassy employees in Washington, D.C. earlier this year. He yesterday pled not guilty to the charges brought against him. Finally, I want to invite you to join us in prayer. For many of us, this will be a challenging way to pray because it will be praying with people who either see us as their enemy or who disagree ardently with that which we as individuals or corporately stand for. But a day of prayer, of bridging divides. It's a day of prayer for peace in the Holy Land, a prayer vigil asking God for the end to war and conflict in the Middle East. You can see the Network of Evangelicals for the Middle East, who's one of the sponsoring bodies alongside of Lausanne, Jews for Jesus, Bethlehem Bible College. I mentioned Lausanne, CMJ USA, of course, the Network of Evangelicals for the Middle East. Speakers will include myself, Gunnar Johnson from the Dream Centers, Michael Al-Daba from Egypt, and Mina, Lisa Loden, who's an author in Israel, Daryl Bach, who's from the Dallas Theological Seminary, Rob Dalrymple from NIMI and E4J, Jeff Roberts from CMJ, I think it's Christian Mission to Jews, if I remember that acronym correctly. Dan Sarad, who's a catalyst for Jewish evangelism within Lausanne. Jack Serra from Bethlehem Bible College. Jacobid Solano, catalyst for freedom and justice for Lausanne. Join us for that event. Again, you can find the information about that on NIMI's website, September 10th at 10 a.m. I'll be commissioned to a role. I won't say what the role is now, but God's calling us to bridge divides. May it be so for the sake of peace. In the name of Christ. Amen.